there is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone. Shrek wakes up from his deep slumber. His breathing was abnormal. His eyes explode open and his eyes crusty from all the cups of soup he ate to cope dying. "I miss dog so much," wailed Shrek. Actually, Shrek finally remembered the first time he took chicken noodle soup. He rolled it up in a blunt, noodle blunts as they call it. "I hope this helps." He lights the end and inhales deep. "Oh boy, that's the stuff," he moans. But he still felt empty inside. Very empty. Shrek has been in deep depression ever since his comrade, Donkey, was killed by the dreaded aliens. Shrek paused and thought deep, and moaned. "I'll get back at those aliens, if it's the last thing I do." He held up his fist. Shrek's ear twitched. He heard something familiar. "It's probably just the wind," he mumbled out, but the noise got louder. His eyes widened tremendously. Shrek drops the noodle pipe and dashes outside in the dead of night. He stares into the sky, stoned as ever, and begins to hallucinate memorable things. All he can see is a massive array of colors, everywhere he looks. The noise softened, but he began to hear Jamaican music surrounding him. He felt so alive and free, he danced around in only his underwear. Dizzy, he dropped down to the cold, hard ground. But that didn't stop Shrek. He immediately got back up and ran to his hidden compartment in the side of his house, and opened it to reveal the Blade 4.0. He grasped it with all his might and began to run around with it like he was Naruto. Shrek sliced all the trees he came into contact with. But he still felt empty, very, very empty. But before all of this happening, Shrek has been binge-watching many animes, enjoying them to the fullest. Shrek now felt tired, very very tired, and he drops down and passes out. July 14, 1967. It was a very hot day here in Vietnam. Me and Donkey have just finished our daily training, me, of course, finishing easily for me being an ogre, but poor Donkey had to muscle through it. Only a day left until we were off to fight in the war. We both are very scared, of course, but it was just the beginning for us. We were drafted into this hellhole, but hopefully, we can make it back alive. "Lights out!" everyone yelled. The commander, Big Smoke. Shrek closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Tomorrow is our day," whispered Shrek as drifted off to sleep. A loud bell echoes through the barracks as Commander Big Smoke marches in. "Time to rise and shine, boys, today we go to war." Roars Smoke. Everyone who was asleep seconds ago was now awake, and more alive than ever. Especially Shrek. He only got barely any sleep last night, only about an hour or two, and his eyes are extremely crusty and dry. Finally, morning groaned Shrek, almost falling off the bed. The big ogre sits up in his bed very slowly, almost falling back down in the process. Donkey hears Shrek get up and he springs up from his bed, to the one next to his, which is Shrek's. Shrek didn't like this one bit. He proceeded to grind his teeth together ferociously. "I can't believe you, Donkey, why are you doing this to me?" groaned Shrek. Donkey sits up straight. "Well, I'm a donkey, what do you expect me to do?" True, mentioned Shrek. They hear a very loud explosion from outside. It rattles the sturdy building. "What the deuce was that?" yelled Shrek in a Boston accent. Shrek and Donkey both run to the window and see something dreadful. "It's the Vietnamese," yells Shrek with his big, strong, ogre voice. Shrek and Donkey both duck down under the window, with bullets flying in. "We gotta get our ogre weapons," wails Shrek to Donkey. "Well, I can't get them, I have hooves, not ogre hands," Donkey replies. "Guess I'll have to do it." Shrek looks around in all directions, seeking an opportunity to run. After minutes of waiting, the gunfire slows down and Shrek now has his opening. He then dashes out of the building, running with all his ogre might. The Vietnamese spot him and scream, "Lynch you, Tin, lynch that ogre." Shrek then hears them yodeling and then, out of nowhere, starts to take heavy fire from the Vietnamese. "Not again!" roars the ogre named Shrek. He runs, with all his ogre might, back to the barracks, only to see something horrifying. He unknowingly opens the door to reveal Donkey dead on the floor, with multiple gunshot wounds all over his body. "No, not Donkey!" wails Shrek. I can't live on anymore," wails Shrek once more. The poor ogre is covered in tears, barely being able to move. After a few minutes of heavy fire and sobbing, Shrek comes to a conclusion. I must join my comrade Donkey. I can't live without him. It's my duty," says Shrek, mostly to assure himself that he'll be alright, even though we all know what will happen next. Shrek walks over to the window and breaks out the window, making himself in plain sight. A suicide act. Within seconds, Shrek gets pelted with bullets and rocks from all sides. Exposed, he becomes weak, very weak. The massive ogre falls down from the windowsill and mutters his very last words. Alien Shrek registered trademark series was a huge mistake. Everything deafens around him, almost like he was falling on a cloud, but in retrospect, he literally is present-day Shrek. Wakes up from his very deep slumber, and immediately feels off. "Oh, why did I have a dream about Donkey?" mutters Shrek in a sad tone right before he begins to cry. He feels something rumble. It was a metallic noise, almost as if thousands of steel gears were clanging against each other. "What the deuce was that?" whispered Shrek, but it was too late for questions. The answers were already there, right in front of him. Suddenly, a massive spacecraft appears right on top of him, but quite a ways from him. The big ogre looks up and immediately recognizes the hand mark on the side. It was the same aliens who took Donkey away from him. Anger fills the ogre as he musters the strength to get up on his feet and put his fist up to the saucer. "This time, I'll finally beat the livin' swamp water out of you," roars Shrek, but only he heard that. The metallic noise was too loud to hear anything else. Shrek, however, was prepared for the final showdown, a showdown that will be talked about for millenniums to come. He was more than ready for this. A massive beam of light sucks up Shrek. His posture is that of a superhero flying. This will end the grudge for once and for all. To be continued in Alien Shrek 3, the finale registered trademark. There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone. Shrek wakes up from his deep slumber. His breathing was